Lord Buddha taught different teachings for people, different mental propensities, different, because some people, I mean, there was one time when Lord Buddha was asked by all the sages of his day, and it may have gotten him crucified. Luckily, India wasn't as cruel to their prophets as some other places, but they asked him what was the deal about God, the world, back in ancient India, when you took a guru, it wasn't just a guru, they gave you the straight dope about everything. There's one part in the sutras where some of his students come and say, oh, world honored one, how do we build a commode? How do we build a bathroom? And Lord Buddha was like, well, I forgot, the equivalent of 3 meters by 3 meters this way, and he taught him how to build a commode, and they excised that from the Buddhist canon. I don't think it's in the canon anymore, but for obvious reasons, like I think we can figure that one out on ourselves. But back then, you went to the person you studied with as a disciple. You learned practically everything from wiping your butt to enlightenment, and Lord Buddha understood that different people have different propensities and you have to take care of beings and slowly, slowly move them up through the ranks and get them enlightened. And the Khenpo that I studied with for 12 years used to ask me questions about my knowledge of the Dharma, and then he'd say, listen, have you been studying your Tibetan? Take it slowly, slowly, slowly. You never would push things on you. He was very distrustful of people who got into the Dharma with a bad motivation. I'm going to get something cool in this life. That's not really an appropriate Dharma motivation. Just the basic Dharma motivation, the listener's motivation is just maybe future's life. I can't really put any of that religious stuff into practice now, but maybe if I do a lot of this stuff, if I just go through the motions, maybe in the next life I'll have a higher birth. Something where I have a longer lifespan, better faculties, and I don't have to suffer as much. It's like the basic entry point of motivation into doing Buddhist practice. Proper motivation would be that you want to really know the real deal so that you can be of some kind of benefit to people. The people that you're seeing growing old, suffering, and dying around you. There's I think in that movie, The Little Buddha, they go through the life of the traditional, I think it was Keanu Reeves as Lord Buddha, and at one point they show him making an act of truth, where he goes and he sees all the suffering beings, and he can't believe that, people, that happens to people, the people die and you have to burn them like wood. That sucks. However I got myself into that, that's the proof of samsara's shittiness. Right there, the world you've gotten yourself into, we were born in, you're forced to die. You have to be chopped up and burned like wood. Lord Buddha at one point then says, if I can reach enlightenment, this bowl will go upstream. And he did this act of truth. It's very traditional in ancient Sanskrit writings, an act of truth. And at some point in your Buddhist career, you might want to go for refuge, and you do an act of truth that I'm going to get to enlightenment to be of some kind of benefit to living beings. Because the whole point is that you can say that you want to help people, but maybe you can give them a place to stay, maybe you can give them some bucks, maybe you can be a friend for them, but they will still be forced to grow old and suffer and die. You can't be of any lasting benefit to a person unless you achieve this kind of omniscient Buddhahood. And to do that, you have to have renunciation. You have to have that healthy distaste for the suffering things of this life. And there's many various sufferings. There were originally 3, the pervasive suffering, the various suffering of change, and we talked a little bit about the suffering of change it's everywhere. You know, high and low status, you know, everything in life changes. You can't, people immediately want to grasp to some kind of static existence. Personally, I'm probably living somewhere in the 90s. I haven't really realized that it's 2006, I'm not in the 90s. I catch myself still saying 95. Every now and then I'll be like, or 2005. I came here in 95. That's what I've been saying lately. I came to Tucson. I came here in 2005. And I think the mind naturally wants to hold on. Your youth, hold on to a good career, hold on to good people. Everything is changing. And everything in this type of life is suffering. Even the good things in life are suffering if you start to analyze them. Ice cream, inevitably, like the basic argument is that if ice cream was inherently great, which I believe ice cream is really inherently wonderful, if it was great, the more you eat it, the better it would be. And that's not the case. The more you eat ice cream, the sicker you're going to get of ice cream. That was the logic about but more importantly, if these various sufferings, if this type of existence had some kind of inherent sufferingness to them, like Lord Buddha taught in the first turning of the wheel, that, you know, life is suffering, there are causes, if they actually could hold an essence over time, then there'd be no reason to practice religion. But because things are the way in Lord Buddha during his second turning of the wheel, that they are essence-less, that they're dependent upon your mental projections, and those mental projections are being forced on you by countless lifetimes of karma, then it's possible to change. The whole purpose of religion is that. Because of paradise, because suffering, bad lives, suffering existences don't have an inherent nature of suffering, or even the paradises don't have an inherent nature of pleasure and bliss from their own side. They can change. And that's the whole purpose of Buddhist practice. The goal is to cut it from the root, which is the ignorance, the fundamental ignorance. And that's the third subject in this text that Tsongkhapa taught, which is emptiness, or correct view. There are many different intellectual schools of emptiness, but when meditated on, it's all the same emptiness. The intellectual pursuit of meditating on, first there's listening to teachings on emptiness, which you have to do, and studying. And then there's like contemplating and debating them. And then after you get a good understanding of that, you get a mental image of that, then you go into meditation with it. And with that understanding of emptiness, you can start to destroy all the various mental afflictions. If you have bodhicitta in this heart, this great compassion for beings, if that has opened up in you, then as you go, if you have a direct perception of emptiness, you go up through various levels where you're annihilating these mental poisons and their causes. You get to a certain point where you're even destroying, like I think it's eighth level bodhisattva level, where you're destroying the very subtle tendencies in your mind to see things as self-existent. And they're seeds. Because constantly in your mental continuum you have seeds that are ripening all the time. If you have, well, in the Buddhist cosmology, since time immemorial, you have had ignorance. And this ignorance is forcing you to collect bad karmic impressions. Seeds, impressions, same thing. They grow in the mind. A mind, in Buddhist cosmology or mind theory, psychology, your mind is a continuum of consciousness. That consciousness is clear and knowing. And it's not made from this gross stuff.